This is sort of the quiet before the storm. These seats are empty now, but for rehearsals and performances, they'll be filled with over 150 members of the great Atlanta Symphony Orchestra Chorus, and of course, the great Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, to perform one of the most monumental works in the entire literature, Beethoven's Missa solemnis. This is part of our season-long celebration of the 100th anniversary of the birth of our music director, Robert Shaw. Mr. Shaw grappled with the Missa solemnis throughout his career. It's one of the first works he prepared for Arturo Toscanini and the then brand new Robert Shaw Chorale in the early 1950s. Mr. Shaw used the Missa solemnis to close his first season as our music director in 1967 and 68. He returned to it in 1972 and again in the 1980s when we made our celebrated Telarc recording, and to the end of his life, even after he retired as music director of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, our current chorus master, Norman Mackenzie, remembers preparing the Missa solemnis for Mr. Shaw no fewer than 5 times in a decade. It's clearly a Mount Olympus of choral orchestral literature, and we're so excited to be performing it for you this week. I thought of no better introduction than some words from Mr. Shaw himself. You may know that after Shaw's rehearsals with the chorus, he would sit down and write in longhand these incredible letters of encouragement, sometimes scolding, to the chorus to do their very utmost. The next morning, his faithful secretary, Nola, would transcribe them and mail them to every single member of the chorus. This is an excerpt from one of those letters as Mr. Shaw and the chorus and the orchestra were preparing the performances in 1972. I wonder if there's anything in the choral symphonic repertoire which can prepare the singer for the ordeal of the Missa solemnis. Certainly it must be true that those who have endured for some weeks the physical and intellectual agony of getting it into the voice are uniquely prepared for its deeper understandings. The Missa solemnis is symphonic in scope and detail. Instrumentalists are not only more familiar with its style and technical demands, their instruments also render them more capable of coping with them. For the singer, however, the work is a frightening and frustrating experience. He or she is asked to perform feats absolutely unequaled in vocal literature, still unique after almost a century and a half. The ranges are excruciating. All voices are asked to encompass an octave plus a major sixth. The bass voices cover over 2 octaves. Sopranos face seemingly endless high A's and B flats. Basses have vocal leaps of an octave and a fifth. The point, of course, is not that Beethoven did not know how to write for the voice. He knew precisely what he wanted to say. He exhausted, exploited, and ennobled the voice. He gave it things to say which had never been imagined. In this sense, the Missa solemnis is a terrifyingly avant-garde piece of music. Finally, of course, what all the agony stems from and comes to is the explosion which he has proposed to the aesthetic, emotional, and religious nature. None of the religious traditions of Western civilization can prepare us for this. We may not be able to verbalize this experience. Music, after all, exists to convey that which cannot otherwise be conveyed. But those of us who have bet our voices against his notes, who've suffered through the long hours of rehearsal and performance, may have a closer sense of what Beethoven may have suffered in the writing. It's signed simply R, Mr. Shaw's first initial. I think that says it all, and I hope you'll join us for these amazing 2 performances of Beethoven's Mount Olympus, the Missa solemnis.